This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
Welcome to What the Fork Wednesday, the stories that make you stop, blink twice, and ask yourself how this is real life. Logic has left the building. Let's begin.
Boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling when she hits go live, everybody feels it.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's AskABee What the Fork Wednesday. First, I want to start with I am apologizing for yesterday. Unforeseeable circumstances kept me away from you all, but hey, here I am, back again. Okay. Now, today is one of those days where we lean all the way into that What the Fork Wednesday moments, because sometimes the stories that we come across don't just make you react, they make you stop and really think about how people are wired, how decisions get made in the moment, and what separates a normal reaction from something that feels completely outside of the box. And that's the space where we're stepping into today, okay? Because not every What the Fork moment is chaos, not even What the Fork moment messy, Sometimes it's just a situation where you sit there and you go, I would not have handled that the same way. And you know what? That's what makes it interesting, because it forces you to look at your own mindset while you're watching someone else's choices play out. Pardon me. One of those days. Now, I'm going to be real with you. Today's story started off kind of simple for me. It started with one of those moments where I realized I didn't know something I probably should have known. You know me, I love my music history, right? And that alone was enough to make me pause. But as I started digging and I started connecting the dots, it turned into something else entirely. It turned into a moment that made me question not what happened, but why it happened the way it did. And that's what we're going to do today. We're not just telling a story, we're unpacking a moment. We're looking at the kind of people or kind of decision that most people wouldn't make, and asking what it actually says about the person who did. So sorry, my Beyonce's messing with me. So as we get into this, I want you to think about that for yourself, okay? Not just what we're hearing, but how you would respond if you were in the same situation, because that's where the real conversation lives. So go ahead, settle in, get comfortable, and let's get into today's What the Fork Wednesday. Now, my What the Fork moment, I want to start this out with today. You ever have one of those moments where something clicks and you just sit there like, hold on, how did I not know this? Because that was me just recently, okay? And I'm not even going to pretend otherwise. I was just scrolling, minding my business, not thinking too deep about, anything. And I came across something about David Grohl. Now, in my mind, David Grohl has always been Foo Fighters, right? That's the image that I had locked in. Front man, guitar. Wrong one. Come down there. There we go. David Grohl. Okay. That's the image I had locked in right there. Front man, guitar, voice, the guy out front carrying the whole show. And of course, their drummer and his passing and everything, that I know that part. And that's where my brain left it. I never questioned it. I never dug deeper because it already made sense to me. It was clean. It was simple. It fit, right? And then I saw it. One of the bands that I love so deeply, okay, which I think samples obviously so many things, and just the most tragic story in rock, if you ask me, okay? Does anybody else know who David Grohl was the drummer for? Yeah, Nirvana. How did I not know that? Listen, I literally stopped because I know Nirvana, okay? I know Nirvana. Everybody knows Nirvana, right? I'm 54 years old. I should know I love Nirvana. That's not the part that surprised me, obviously. What surprised me was realizing I never actually connected those two things in my head in a real way. Yeah, I might have heard it before somewhere in passing, but it never landed. It never stuck. It never registered in a way that made me understand it. And in that moment, it hit all at once. The same man I've been watching lead Foo Fighters all these years. I'm 54, y'all. I'm old. Hi, teacher of faith. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. But seriously, okay, Foo Fighters all these years was sitting behind the drum kit in one of the most influential bands in rock history. And I just sat there thinking, how many other things like this have I completely missed? Because I have. Your mom's 52. Oh, well, that's a great age. Look, we're not playing this game. You need to go away, sir. No, sir. I don't even know who the heck. Okay, so, and 52 is a great age for your mom. I'm so happy to hear it. I'm glad you still have her too. So, look, y'all, this made me realize something really quick. We don't always see the full picture of the people we're watching. We see the version that's presented to us, right? The versions that are current, the version that's active right now, and we lock that in as the truth without ever really asking what came before it and how it connects. And I started thinking about how easy it is to put people in boxes. Like, okay, look, this is who they are. This is what they do. And we don't question it because it works for us, right? It keeps things simple. It keeps things easy to understand. And when it comes to rock music, you know you don't understand everything, right? You just don't. Even as much of an enthusiast as I am. Then you get hit with a moment like that, right? And it breaks the box completely because now you have to reconcile two versions of the same person and realize they were always both true. Night, I'm in it again. Okay, I don't understand what that means, but hi. Thank you for being here. You just didn't see what happened here. And that's where the real what the fork moment came in for me. Not just that he was the drummer for Nirvana, but that I had gone this long without really understanding that connection. Wow. And once that door opened, I did what we all do. I started digging because now I need context. I mean, that's a heck of a rabbit hole, y'all. Now I needed to understand how that transition even happened. I mean, first off, let's be real here. The first thing I thought is, oh my gosh, the things that he's lived through that I didn't even know, that gave me a different perspective about him. I mean, immediately, right? How do you go from being behind the kit in a band like Nirvana to stepping out front and leading your own band like Foo Fighters? It's beyond me, but I'm amazed, right? That's not a small shift. That's not something you just casually do. That's a complete, the end of Nirvana could have totally ruined him for the rest of his life. Seriously. That's a completely different role, a completely different level of responsibility that he just thrusts himself into after such a tragic happening, and completely different. He's completely different, right? A different presence, different music, different everything. Night. I'm and again, please no Keisha, no say me, no speak English. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. I'm not sure what you're asking, but all I speak is English. So, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just a random fact. Okay, this was a setup. This was the beginning of a story that I hadn't fully paid attention to. And once I started pulling on that thread, that's when I found the moment we're talking about today. Because what started was as a simple realization turned into something that made me stop again and go, now, wait a minute, because of this, because if this is the same person, if this is the same guy who made that kind of transition, then what kind of mindset does that take? Right? Hello, I am reading your message. Thank you. What kind of person do you have to be to move like that? Hi, Ellen. I'm good, honey. How are you? I'm so happy to see you, doll. Hope everything's going okay on your side too, sweetie. I love you. Y'all get over there and see Ellen. She's the bestest ever. Oh, I'm good, honey. I'm good. Just wore out, It's just life. Oh, a knee replacement. Oh, you know what? I probably need to do that myself. I don't know if I'll ever go, but I'm glad you did, honey. I bet it'd be lots better. Lots better. I had a cousin that had both knees replaced at the same time because she was just in a lot of pain all the time. And you know what? She is so much better. Kenny Powers? No, that is David Grohl. The Pettysburg dress. I love that. That is awesome. I love some Petty now. All right, I better get back to this. I'm so happy to see you, Ellen. Thank you for coming to see me, sweetie. Yeah, two, both at the same time, but there was so much. She waited too long. She really did. And there was so much degeneration in one, it caused more degeneration in the other. So they just said, look, we can do this at the same time. Let's just do it and get it over with. You're Petty Roosevelt, the president of all things petty. See, now that is amazing, and I love it. That's awesome. Petty is good. Well, at least you only had to do one, huh, Ellen? At least you only had to do one. I hope you're doing okay, honey. Stay off of that. You rest. Let it get well. You know the routine. All right. So my biggest question about David Grohl, honestly, is what kind of person do you have to be to move like that? All right. In that instance. Oh, absolutely, sweetie. Really, thank you for coming to see me. I've been thinking about you. You must have heard me thinking. I was going to pop over there. Things have gotten a little hectic at home for me, but we're doing good. So, pardon me. More importantly, I think what happens when the same person is put in a situation where most people would stop, because that's where today's story lives, not in what he did before, not in what we already know, but in a moment that makes you question how far someone is willing to go to keep moving forward. And I'm telling you right now, when I got to that part, I had another one of those moments where I just sat there like, you've got to be kidding me. It's a B. Boss B. Have a look. See, it's a B. Are you going to be petty here? Come on. All right. So, because this is one of those stories that sounds made up until you realize it's not. Listen, that's exactly why it belongs here today on What the Fork Wednesday, because sometimes the craziest part isn't what happened. It's realizing who it happened to and how it connects back to everything that you thought you already knew. All right, let me load up this second half here. Thank you for sticking with me so much through all the conversation. I love the conversation. I live for it. That's why I'm here. I don't see any reason for pettiness. Oh, good. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, it's definitely not a moose. I mean, I could, show you the whole background, but then I would have to stop the show and move everything around. And I'm not going to do that right now. But I'm still really, really happy that you're here. All right. So, yeah. David Grohl. Y'all. Can you believe this mess? All right. Now that I've had that moment where everything kind of clicked and I realized I had been looking at Dave Grohl through a very limited lens, I need to slow this down and actually lay out who this man is, because the story that we're about to get into does not hit the same if you don't understand the foundation first. And I'm not just talking about a quick, oh, he was in Nirvana and now he's in Foo Fighters. No, we need to actually sit in that for a minute, because look, Nirvana was not just another band, right? Thank you. Thank you for trusting me. I think I would keep going and not stop the show. I will just let it run. And when I get finished is when I get finished. If it's 15 minutes, it's an hour and a half. That's okay. Oh, love you too. Bye. Okay. So, because Nirvana was not, just another band, right? They were a defining force in music. They shifted the sound, they shifted the culture, and they changed what people expected from rock. No, I mean, what the fork? I don't like to use the F-bomb on my show. It's not nice. So, as the drummer, Dave was part of that core. He was not just background noise. He was not just keeping rhythm. He was part of that, of what made that sound feel the way that it did. And when you are part of something that big, something that impactful, something that becomes a piece of history, you don't just walk away from that lightly. Most people wouldn't, right? Because there is a certain level of identity that comes with being part of something like that. It becomes who you are in the eyes of the world. And for a lot of people, that's enough. That's the peak. That's the thing they hold on to and build around. But what makes this different, what makes him different, is what happened after. Because when Nirvana ended, that it could have been the end of his story, at least in that spotlight. He could have stayed behind the scenes, he could have stayed in that drummer role in a different band, worked with other artists, continued to be part of the music world without stepping in to a new lane, which is what he did. And nobody would have questioned that after what he went through with the lead singer of Nirvana's passing. So nobody would have said he was doing it wrong, because that's the expected path. That's the comfortable path. That's, what makes sense. But instead, no, he chose something that doesn't make immediate sense when you really think about it. He stepped forward. He, not just a little bit, not testing the waters, but fully stepped into a completely different role. He built Foo Fighters from the ground up and became the frontman. Now, he's not behind the kit anymore. Now he's the voice with a different instrument. Now he's the presence. Now he's carrying the band in a completely different way. And then he loses his drummer. And you know what? He's still out there. And if you really sit in all that, that is not a small shift. That is not something you just casually do. That is a complete identity change in the public eye. And I mean, how many times do you think he's had to reinvent himself through all these processes? Because being a drummer and being a frontman are two entirely different things. One is supporting the structure. The other is leading the entire thing, right? One is part of the foundation. The other is the face people connect to. And that kind of transition tells you something very specific about the person making it. It tells you there is a level of driven here, a level of confidence and a willingness to step into something new, even when it would have been easier to stay where you were already, where you were established and already respected. And the more I sat with that, the more I realized this is not someone who operates in the same lane as everybody else. This is not someone who stays in a box just because it works. This is someone who moves when it would be easier not to move. And that matters, right? Because when you understand that part of him, when you understand that he has already shown a pattern of stepping into uncomfortable spaces and redefining himself, it makes what happens feel like less random and more like a continuation of that same mindset. Not normal, not something most people would do, but consistent with who he has already shown himself to be. That's why I needed to take the time to lay this out, because if you just hear the story without understanding who he is, it sounds like a wild moment that makes no sense. But when you connect it back to this, when you see the full picture, you start to realize this might be one of those moments where someone showed you exactly who they are in real time without hesitation, without overthinking it, just acting in a way that lines up with everything they've already proven about themselves. And that's where this shifts from just being a crazy story into something that actually tells you something deeper about the person at the center of it. And you know what? Why? In a moment where most people would have stopped. Why? He didn't even consider it. Yeah. It's pretty crazy if you ask me. Look at that. So, the real what the fork moment here. Now we need to get to it, okay? And this is where everything we just talked about starts to matter a little bit more, because this is not one of those quiet behind the scenes stories, right? This happens live in real time in front of a full crowd. Foo Fighters are on stage. The energy is high. Of course it's high. I mean, it's Foo Fighters. Everything is moving the way it's supposed to move. And David Grohl is doing what he does. He's all over the stage, back and forth, fully in it, fully engaged, not holding back, because that's the kind of performer he is, right? Yeah. And in the middle of that, all of it, in the middle of a show that's already locked in, he takes a step the wrong direction, just one step. And that's all it took. He falls straight off the stage. Not a stumble, not a catch yourself moment. He falls off the stage, disappears from view, and just like that, everything changes. Boom. Yes, it must, Ellen. It sure must. Absolutely. Now, if you're that in that crowd, you're thinking the same thing anybody would think. Okay, that's it. Show's over, right? Something just went very wrong, and there's no way you recover from that in the middle of a live performance because that's the normal response. That's the expected response. Look, you fall off a stage, it's done. It's done, right? It's done. No, no, that's not what happens here. Because after that fall, after that moment where everything should have stopped, he comes back. Not casually, not like nothing happened. He comes back out and tells the crowd straight up his leg is broken. Not hurt, not twisted, not something you walk off. Doesn't work. Broken. And you can imagine that moment because now the crowd is trying to process what they're hearing. You just watched this man fall off the stage, disappear completely. This man right here, disappear completely, come back. And now he's telling you his leg is broken. This is him falling off the stage as it was happening. So at that point, there's really only one logical next step. You end the show, you call it, you shut it down because nobody is expecting anything else. We saw what happened. You said it's broke. Bye. Nobody would question that decision, right? Sure, you might have to do a little partial refund or something, but nobody would blame him, right, for that. In fact, most people would respect it and not even care about the money, but that's not what happens either. Okay? Oh man, the pain. Seriously, it's funny how you showed up with this one. It must have been that title, huh? But look, right there in front of the crowd, and you've got to picture this because this is not behind a curtain. This is not hidden. This is happening live. Okay? It's happening live. I've got to, yes. This is him on the ground. This is the projector. They're looking at him just after he fell. They are stabilizing his leg while the show is still technically going. And at this point, you would think, okay, maybe they're just getting him ready to leave safely. Maybe this is the step before everything shuts down. Okay, but no, that's not what's happening here. Because once his leg is stabilized, once they've done what they need to do to make sure he's not going to make it worse, he makes a decision that is the entire reason we're talking about this today. The man, okay? The man. Listen, y'all. Look at that. He decides to keep going. This is right after it happened. This is after they picked him up off the floor, got him back up on the stage, put a chair down for him, and this guy's sitting there stabilizing his leg until the show is over. Yeah, he decides to keep going, not stand up and push through it, not pretend it didn't happen. He sits down right there on stage and continues the show with a broken leg. Finishes the set, song after song, sitting there, still performing, still singing, still engaging. I mean, he fell. That's a long fall. A very long fall. And look at this. This is them putting him back on stage. Can you believe that mess? Song after song, sitting there, still performing, still singing, still engaging with the crowd while his leg is broken. Like nothing about the situation has changed except for the position that he's in. He's no longer standing. And I need you to really sit with that for a second because this is the moment where it goes from being an accident to being something else entirely. Okay? Now listen, I'm going to take my quick break. I will be right back. Y'all listen to this really cool song.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson, every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss Bee. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. A Boss Bee rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss Bee rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns the power unseen. So let further spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss Bee doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss Bee rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss Bee rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame, got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free, it's a love note to the world sign. Boss Bee. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss Bee rising, BBTV shining, her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss Bee rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss Bee rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss Bee rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
No, ma'am, it's not you. It's me. I'm tired today. I'm a mess. I'm just a mess today. I got a lot going on and I'm just not happy about it. I'm sorry. What I did say though, now that I'm back on here, um, yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you love the music because I was sitting here thinking, wow, I've made music for people I love and good, thank you. I made music for everybody except for me. And so, yeah, I made that one for me for once. I mean, I made Big Jack probably 6 different songs. I've made Mama Lion's few songs. I made one for you. I made one for um, Tracy, Tracy's Local Learnings, and Guy and Shine, and I was like, wow, I really need to make one for me. And there it is. Okay, so back to what I was saying, the fall was an accident. That happens. People get hurt. Things go wrong, right? Correct? But the decision to continue, that's not an accident. That's a choice. It's a deliberate decision made in a moment where most people would have gone the other way. Aw, awesome. You know what, honey? Your show's just, I'm so proud of you. I really am. I am so proud of you. You go, girl. You go, girl. So the more you think about it, the more, it starts to hit you that this is not normal behavior. Okay. This is not how most people operate because pain like that, an injury like that, it changes everything in an instant. It tells you to stop, tells you to protect yourself. It tells you to step away. And he ignored all of that and said, no, we're finishing this. And he absolutely did. Just like this. Look, guitar in hand. And, that's the part that makes you sit back and go, what the fork kind of mindset does it take? Because it's not just about toughness. It's not about pushing through. It's something deeper than that. It's a refusal to stop once something has started. A refusal to let the moment and the way it was supposed to end, and instead reshaping it into something else entirely. And that's why this moment stands out to me, truly does, because it's not just a story about someone getting hurt, okay? It's a story about what someone chooses to do immediately after everything goes wrong and how that choice defines the moment more than the accident ever could. It's a crazy decision to make, if you ask me. I mean, to get back up on stage after falling, number one, I'd probably be pretty embarrassed, but then I'd be thinking about it, he probably didn't have that inhibition, right? I mean, the adrenaline was probably pumping already. I mean, look at that. Nice and stable. Guy had to hold the thing. Seriously. Look at him. And that's him at a different concert after getting the cast and everything in a chair with his guitar. Seriously. He even got himself a throne for it. Look. Just hold on a minute, because this is the part where I need to slow this all the way down and really sit in what we just heard. Because on the surface, it sounds kind of simple, right? He broke his leg. He finished the show. That's the headline. That's the clip. That's the whole story that people repeat. But when you actually think about it, when you really break it down step by step, or step, no step, nothing about that decision makes sense in a normal world. Because let's be real for a second. If you fall off a stage and break your leg, your first thought is not, let me finish this set. Your first thought is, something is wrong. I got to stop. That's instinct. That's your body telling you, hey, this hurts. That's how most people are wired. Pain is supposed to tell you to pause, to protect yourself, to step back. So when someone does the exact opposite of that, when someone experiences that level of injury and still chooses to keep going, wow, you have to ask yourself, what is that? What is driving that decision? Because it's not just adrenaline, it's not just the crowd, it's not just being in the moment. There's something deeper there, something that overrides all of the normal signals that would tell you to shut it down. And I keep coming back to that question. At what point do you say, okay, enough is enough? Because clearly that point never came for him in this moment. And then you have to look at the people around him too, because this wasn't something that happened in isolation. There were medics there. There were people who knew exactly what kind of injury he was dealing with. And even in that environment, the decision was made to keep the show going. I don't know. I admire the strength here. I couldn't do it. And that makes you wonder, is that something that you allow, or is that something you try to stop? Because from the outside looking in, it feels like a moment where everything could have gone the other way. Everything could have just stopped and nobody would have questioned it. Nobody would have been upset. In fact, people probably would have respected it, but instead it became something else entirely. It became a moment that people talk about, a moment that people remember, and a moment that gets repeated because it doesn't fit into the normal way we expect things to go. And that's where the conversation shifts for me, because now it's not just about whether it was the right decision or the wrong decision. It becomes about what the decision represents. Is that dedication? Is it passion? Is that something you admire? Or is that something you look at and say, maybe that went a little too far? I don't think there's a clean answer to that, because on one hand, okay, you can look at it and say, that's incredible. Wow. That's someone who refused to stop, someone who committed to finishing what they started, no matter what got in the way. And there's something in that people connect to, because we all like the idea of pushing through. I can't imagine, because do you realize how many times he's had to push through for some kind of pain? I mean, the leg, that's more simple than half the pain that he's had to push through in his lifetime. Not letting obstacles define his outcome. But on the other hand, you can also look at it and say, there has to be a line somewhere. I mean, how much can you stand? There has to be a point where you choose yourself over the moment, where you choose your health over the performance, and where you step back and say, this is not working, it's not worth making it worse. Okay. And that's where it gets interesting, because this moment lives right in the middle of those two ideas. It's not clean. It's not simple. It's not something you can easily label as right or wrong. It's one of those moments that just makes you sit there and think about how different people respond when everything goes sideways. Some people stop completely. Some people step back. And some people, like we just saw, adjust and keep going no matter what it looks like. Right, Ellen? I know you know what I'm talking about, honey. And if I've ever seen a stronger person, it's you. You know, maybe that's the real takeaway here, honestly. Not that everyone should do what he did, obviously. Not that this is the standard to live by. But that moments like this show you something real about the person at the center of it. They show you how someone is wired when things don't go according to plan. And Whether you agree with it or not, whether you would make the same choice or not, you can't deny that it leaves an impression because it forces you to ask yourself a question you might not have thought about before. If you were in that moment, if everything went wrong right in the middle of something you cared about, would you stop? Or would you find a way to keep going? I know. I know. I know you do, honey. This is another reason why I was kind of glad you got here. I know you would. You already have. And going. You're my little energizer bunny, aren't you? Look, that right there is what makes this true what the fork moments, okay? Because it's not just about what happened on that stage. It's about what it reveals when you look at it a little deeper. I mean, what the fork, man. A lot of people would have ran to the hospital. Yep, they sure would have. They sure would. I would have. But then again, to possibly share a little bit of my story, not too many people know I have a broken wing, flesh-eating bacteria, and I can't stretch my arm out all the way anymore. Almost lost my life, lost my arm. Crazy circumstances in the middle of it. And you know what? I had a wound care specialist nurse that came in, and they had forgotten to give me the medicine that they were supposed to give me before she came in and pulled the sponge out of my arm, which was open from my shoulder to my wrist, in order to take out what that bacteria had ruined in my arm. And they had forgotten to give it to me. And I told her, I said, you know what? I've been through enough pain with this. It does not hurt as much as y'all seem to think anymore. So just take care of it. And no, I didn't have any pain medication. And she pulled that sponge out of my arm, and sure, it hurt. But I guarantee you, it hurt a heck of a lot less than knowing that my arm was never going to stretch out again. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if you can see it, but, well, let's see here. There you go. You can see it all the way. And it goes to right here. And that's okay, because you know what? I'm right-handed, and my left arm is stronger than my right. I can pick up heavier stuff with my left hand. See? We get through these things. Stuff happens, and it's okay because it just helps us grow. Yes, exactly. Look, I'm going to put that up there because that's exactly what I'm trying to say. It makes you stronger. Keep moving and don't give up. That's right. My mom used to tell me, she passed away in 2020. She used to tell me that it was more about the RA, her rheumatoid arthritis. It was more about that, but she says, and with knowing this, I've come to realize that it's true for a lot of situations. When you're not feeling like you should be, when you're not feeling, when you don't feel like you're accomplishing anything, get up and move. Get up and move. Keep moving. Just like you just said, keep moving and don't give up. And because of that, she didn't have the effects that rheumatoid arthritis normally has on a person. It didn't cripple her, which it very well should have. She did have some deformation, but she responded to the medicine well, and she kept moving. And she said, that's the secret to life. And it's true. You got to keep moving. That is why, pardon me, I'm going to pull this one up. That is why we are strong. Many people can't deal with it and can't understand how we keep going. There is no choice. Amen, sis. Amen. You know that's true. I know that's true. For both of us, very much so. You cry and give up, you die. Exactly. You're so right about that. And I'm not willing to give up. I've got so much more to live for. And I have a lot of people that have gone that I know would want me to stay here, be happy, and live my life, right? Well, I guess I'll say cookie dough there, Chroma777. I don't want to live. LOL. We are twins. Yep. We are. We are. Exactly. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay to feel like that, but it's not okay to stay in that pattern of thinking, because you know what? It's only going to make it harder on you. I know there's lots of people out there that would be more like work smarter, not harder. Okay, that applies for everything too. Because, the harder that you work on trying to change the narrative when you can't, the less efficient it becomes, and it becomes more of a chore instead of a job or a dream to come true, So you got to stop and think about what is going on around you as well, and just sit in that moment. I get it and understand what you're saying. You have to grow. You always are moving forward, mistakes and all. Amen. Not, yeah, not saying. Okay, what I am saying. I got you, honey. And it's true. That's exactly it, honey. That is exactly it. You can't sit in that narrative for too long without it taking you down. And you know what? That's where the strength grows the most. Right before you're about to fall. It sucks, but it's true. So right there is where I'm going to leave that story, because let me tell you, Dave, I love me some Foo Fighters, okay, but Dave is a little crazy too. I mean, I can't imagine being in the band, not at the front, not being well known like the front singer, obviously, and not just for what happened when the band, I'm trying to keep away from that word, when he unalived himself, okay? That had to have been hard, just being in that band and knowing him and being that close to him, and then to turn around, and instead of letting it destroy him, he turns around and he becomes more, and probably in honor of him, because he knew they were going somewhere before all that happened. And we know that, substances had a lot to do with what was going on there. But he panned through that too. They've even got a movie out, which is kind of corny and one of those kind of B horror kind of stupid movies. And I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm not giving it a bad review or anything like that. Go see it for yourself. But what would Nirvana be now, right? What would Dave be now if there was still a Nirvana? Being in Nirvana, experiencing all the drama. Can you imagine what he went through? I can't imagine. I know that's my point too. I cannot imagine. And then, he does all these wonderful things and grows and becomes this with the Foo Fighters, and oh my goodness, he loses his drummer, which just happened, I think, last year, to substance abuse, unfortunately. So that's 2 bands, 2 members that he's lost throughout these 2. Okay. How do you power through that? Because here's the deal. Okay. He is already out there doing his thing again, even now that he's lost his drummer. I mean, I understand you can replace a drummer, but you don't want to after being in a band with them all this time and actually making a huge name for yourself, right? Yes, he survived it all. His normal is different from ours. I know my normal is different than others. People look at me and can't believe what I went through. I get it, truly. I know you do, doll. I don't know. Something told you to come see this one today because preach, B, right? It's crazy how God puts you in other people's path. It really is crazy. It is. All right, so I'm going to have to get off of here now. I know you popped on my screen. See? Something told you to come over here. Amen. But I think he's always done that for both of us since I met you. I think he's done that for both of us. Amen. You're the best, sweetheart. I'm so glad you showed. I love you so much. Yes. All right. I'm going to leave this here because that is just a lot to process in one sitting, right? Thank you, honey. Thank you. And ditto on that one. I love you and I wish you all the best too. You too. All right, those moments that stay with you, okay, not because of what happened on the surface, but because of what it represents once you really sit with it. X's and O's, baby girl, I love you so much. So, because at the end of the day, that wasn't just about a fall, and it wasn't just about an injury. It was about a decision made in real time, under pressure, in front of a crowd where the easy choice and the expected choice were sitting right there, and still a different path was taken. That's what makes it a what the fork moment, because it forces you to pause and ask yourself what you would have done in that same position. Would you have stopped? Would you have stepped back and said, enough is enough? Or would you have found a way to keep going, even if it meant doing things differently than you planned, right? There's no right or wrong answer to that. And that's the point. These moments aren't here to tell you what you should do. They're here to show you how different people respond when things don't go according to plan. And sometimes seeing that is enough to shift the way you think about your own choices, your own limits, and, well, your own reactions when life throws you something unexpected. So, if nothing else, take that with you today. Think about how you respond when things go sideways, and whether you're someone who stops or someone who just and keeps moving forward. Just go. Do it. Don't stop. Listen, as always, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking the time to sit in these conversations. Ellen, honey, I appreciate you being here and having a conversation with me. I think I needed that just as much as you did, doll. I will see you next time. You guys get over there and see my buddies at Tuber Chat. And hey, I love you all. Buzz you later, guys. See you soon.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches, building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why.
If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way.
We're live every day at 3 p.m. Central now.
And don't worry, we didn't change the heat, just the clock. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
Boss be right.